So, there I was, reincarnated into another world, and not just as anything, but as a dragon egg. To make things juicier, I was a double yolk egg, a literal 1 in 100 years phenomenon. Twins and one shot. I genuinely thought I was about to start life at the absolute peak of existence. Boy, was I wrong. Turns out, dragon family planning has a strict one-child policy. If a clutch has more than one egg, they straight up eat the uglier, less talented one. Since my stats couldn't compete with my egg mate, my loving biological parents decided that instead of eating me, they'd do the merciful thing. Kick me out of the house and dump me into the world's most dangerous high-level monster dungeon to fend for myself. Since high-tier dragons are basically premium walking bloodstones to the monsters here, Mom and Dad left totally confident I'd never make a comeback. And honestly, they were right. At level 1, just staying alive was a pipe dream. I managed to survive for a bit by using my tiny size to hide in crevices, but after days without a single bite to eat, my health bar was flashing red. I was stumbling around like a headless chicken, waiting for the sweet release of death, when suddenly, a faint, slightly sour, almost fermented smell wafted through the gloomy cave. It smelled pretty funky, honestly, but my hatchling instinct screamed, "Food!" It was a scent only a dragon's nose could pick up. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I scrambled through a few tunnels and stumbled into a massive spherical cavern. Right in the middle was a terrifying 20-meter-long dragon, a level 28 subspecies Earth Dragon Monarch. One sneeze from this lady would vaporize me, but right under her belly, 3 or 4 Earth Dragon hatchlings about my size were chugging away at her breast milk. Now, Earth Dragons aren't true dragons, but they've got the bloodline. Most importantly, as a candle dragon, her milk was perfectly compatible with my system. Using the shadows, I stealthily belly crawled over to her midsection. When I got a closer look at the 4 hatchlings, I internally screamed, "God bless America!" They were so freshly hatched that their eyes weren't even open yet. Perfect. Free buffet, zero chance of getting spotted by the kids. I took a nervous glance at the giant mom, verified she was snoozing, and let my starvation take the wheel. I latched on and started chugging like my life depended on it, because it did. The sleeping Earth Dragon Monarch gave a sudden shudder. I could practically hear her internal monologue. Whoa, which one of my kids is sucking with the force of a hydraulic pump? But assuming a hungry child is a healthy child, her motherly instincts kicked in and she decided not to open her eyes and ruin dinner. As the milk flooded my throat, a strange warm energy surged through my freezing body. Along with it, my levels started creeping up. Maybe it was the relief of escaping death, or maybe the Earth Dragon's belly was just incredibly cozy, but my tense nerves finally relaxed. My head rolled to the side and I knocked out cold. I don't know how much time passed, but a sharp, agonizing pinch on the scruff of my neck snapped me awake. The very next second, a massive, slitted reptilian eye filled my entire field of vision. Looking into those eyes, which were practically radiating sparks of fury, I did the only logical thing. I pulled in my limbs, closed my eyes, and prayed she'd chew fast so it wouldn't hurt as much. I accepted my fate. Except death didn't come. I opened one eye. The Earth Dragon's expression was changing in real time. The pure rage softened into confusion, then into pity, and finally into a deep, resigned sigh. She closed her eyes, exhaled a puff of smoke, and gently dropped me right back into the pile of her actual children. I was utterly dumbfounded. Before I could process it, Mama Dragon ignored me entirely, curled back up, and went right back to snoring. Meanwhile, the other hatchlings, who had just opened their eyes for the first time, excitedly swarmed me like 4 overly enthusiastic puppies, sniffing and licking me. Whoa, what is this thing? She looks so weird, like an alien crossed with a mutant. Wow. Thanks, guys. Turns out my newly unlocked telepathy skill, which let me understand and speak the language of all monsters, just allowed me to realize my new siblings were roasting me to my face. I opened my jaws and let out an angry telepathic roar. Instantly, all 4 of them froze. They clearly didn't expect the alien to speak fluent monster. And honestly, I didn't expect them to understand me so perfectly either. Despite the rough introduction, I spent 3 incredibly peaceful days in that cave. Hanging out with the little guys was actually pretty fun. Sure, they talked smack constantly, but it was all bark and no bite. They'd insult my appearance and call me a freeloading hobo, but because I was the smallest, skinniest, and ugliest of the bunch, they'd completely surround me like a protective wall whenever we went to to sleep. If there was even a slight noise outside the cave, they'd push me to the back, yelling, "Stay back, you weakling! Don't make a sound and don't get in our way," while physically shielding me from danger. I had secretly scanned their stats, by the way. As a rare high-tier candle dragon, my growth rate completely broke the system. In just 3 days, my level had rocketed all the way to level 9, while they were still sitting at level 4. I could have taken them easily, but I chose to keep that little secret to myself. In my heart, I had genuinely started to view this Earth Dragon crew as my real family. They were a million times better than my biological parents. My only regret was that Mama Dragon still wouldn't talk to me. Whenever I tried to greet her, she'd just give me a passing glance and ignore me. I thought this peaceful, freeloading life would last forever, but on the 4th day, the peace was shattered. A level 35 low-tier subspecies Kodo beast burst into our cave. Its 4 bloodshot crimson eyes locked instantly on the 4 Earth Dragon hatchlings. The beast was starving, feral, and looking for blood. Seeing the danger, Mama Dragon didn't hesitate for a second. With one swift sweep of her massive tail, she launched the 4 hatchlings safely into the corner of the cave and threw herself right in front of the Kodo beast. The air instantly turned electric, and they crashed into a brutal, chaotic brawl. But let's be real, the level gap was too wide. Faced with a monster significantly higher level than she was, Mama Dragon was forced to retreat step by step. In a desperate move to shield us and her babies, she took a direct hit. The Kodo beast's thick, brutal nasal horn pierced straight through her chest. Even with a giant hole in her torso, she refused to budge. Her back legs dug violently into the ground, anchoring her down to stop the beast's advance. With a deafening roar, she locked her front claws tightly around the Kodo beast's neck, opened her shark-like jaws, and bit down furiously on its back, tearing away a massive chunk of flesh. By this point, the sheer impact of these two massive behemoths colliding was causing the cave walls to crack wide open. Boulders the size of cars started raining down from the ceiling. Seeing this, I sprinted and leaped into midair, using my fists and kicks to smash the falling rocks into dust. But the collapse was happening way too fast. Just keeping the 4 helpless hatchlings safe took absolutely everything I had. I had 0 energy left to actually help Mama Dragon. And honestly, even if I jumped into the fray, my attacks wouldn't do jack against a thick-skinned tank like the Kodo beast. I'd just be getting in the way. Suddenly, the Kodo beast went into a feral frenzy. It surged forward with unbelievable brute force, shoving its horn even deeper into Mama Dragon's chest cavity. The force was so violent that the horn itself cracked, and the agonizing pain of her chest tearing open was unbearable. Mama Dragon knew right then and there that she wasn't walking out of this cave alive. She turned her head to look back at her babies one last time. When her eyes landed on me, frantically doing everything in my power to shield the little guys, a glimmer of profound relief washed over her gaze. It was as if she was saying, "I'm really glad I didn't eat you back then." With her eyes bloodshot and wide, she mustered every single ounce of life force she had left and delivered a cataclysmic headbutt straight to the back of the Kodo beast's head. The impact was earth-shattering. Mama Dragon's skull collapsed on impact, her jaw shattering into pieces. But even with its ridiculously thick armor, the hindbrain couldn't take a suicidal nuke like that. A massive crater formed on the back of its head. Both giant beasts let out a synchronized, agonizing shriek and collapsed heavily to the ground, completely still. As the dust settled, the cave stopped collapsing. I immediately broke away from the corner and sprinted over to Mama Dragon. But looking at her practically crushed skull, the reality hit me like a truck. She was already gone. There was no saving her. My babies, cough, how are they? It was the first time I had ever heard Mama Dragon speak. Her life was a flickering candle in the wind. Her shattered jaw made her telepathic words incredibly slurred and faint. Hearing her question, a suffocating wave of guilt crashed over me. I tried desperately to suppress the tremble in my voice, because the truth was, her 4 hatchlings were dead. They had been crushed by the debris. There were just too many falling rocks. No matter how fast I smashed them, I couldn't stop them all. Mama Dragon's final explosive headbutt had triggered a massive cave-in. While I had somehow miraculously survived, the 4 little guys, whom I had genuinely started to view as my real brothers and sisters, were gone. Just minutes ago, they were jumping around and talking trash to me. Now, they were nothing but souls trapped beneath the rubble. "Are my babies, are they okay?" Mama Dragon asked again, her ruptured eyes unable to see. She was using her very last breath just to worry about them, her voice overflowing with pure motherly love. Hearing the guilt in my chest felt like a ticking bomb, threatening to blow me apart. I bit my molars so hard I thought they'd crack, forcing down the absolute agony in my throat. I adopted the gentlest tone I could muster and lied. "They're fine. They just fainted from the shock. They're okay? Good." Hearing that, a peaceful, relieved smile finally spread across her face. "Eat me after I die." Her words made me freeze entirely. "We were born in the dungeon. It's a curse from birth. No resources can be wasted. This is the final nourishment I can give my children. I don't know why a supreme high-tier monster like you ended up here, but since I took you, please take care of my babies." Her trembling voice cut off. She exhaled one final, heavy breath, and her life force completely vanished. Even at the very end, her face carried a peaceful happiness, believing her children were safe. She went quietly. The massive pool of blood around her knees slowly seeped into the cracked earth, and the cave fell into a deathly, suffocating silence. I opened my mouth, but I couldn't even let out a sob. In this hellhole, crying out loud is just a dinner bell for other monsters, but my chest felt like it was blocked by a massive boulder. The dragon who adopted me, the 4 siblings I spent every waking moment with, turned into 5 corpses in the blink of an eye. My foster mom's first words to me were also her last. A wave of absolute powerlessness hit me like a tidal wave. But this dungeon doesn't give you time to mourn. With a deafening, earth-shaking roar, the Kodo beast, which should have been dead, actually trembled and stood back up, dragging its caved-in skull. It unleashed a triumphant, bloody roar. In its eyes, the lone tiny hatchling left in front of it didn't pose a single threat. I lowered my head, my dragon claws tightening into fists, facing this towering mountain of a monster. My voice shook slightly, but not from fear. It was pure, unadulterated rage. System announcement. Skill, Dragon's Majesty has been unlocked. Hey, you want to know what the best part about being dumped in this godforsaken dungeon is? I muttered, looking up, my voice filled with an explosive, lethal excitement. It's that I get to kill you with my own 2 hands. With a ferocious roar, I charged straight at the Kodo beast. Even though it was heavily injured, trying to pierce its thick armored hide with my current stats was still a pipe dream. But I had a way. Mama Dragon had already paved the road to victory for me. She left me the perfect opening, that massive, torn open wound right on the back of its neck. I screamed, turning into a blur of light as I launched myself directly at the back of the Kodo beast. I extended my claws to their absolute limit and drove them violently into the open wound, ripping the flesh apart with everything I had. Flashbacks of the last 3 days flashed through my mind like a movie. Mama Dragon being silently protective, the 4 hatchlings fighting me for food, all of us sleeping in a pile. My boiling killing intent expanded to an unprecedented level. My mind went completely blank, wiped clean of everything except one single absolute directive: kill this monster and avenge them. 3 or 4 hours later, the fight was over. I walked over to Mama Dragon's body, gently placing my claw on her flank. I could still feel a lingering, faint warmth. I didn't let myself drown in tears. The dungeon doesn't believe in tears. Like she said, being born here is a curse. Dying at any moment is just standard operating procedure. My only regret was that I wasn't strong enough to save my siblings. Mama, I'll live on. I'll carry your share, and my brothers and sisters' shares, and I will survive. I opened my mouth, bit down, and tore away a piece of her flesh, forcing myself to swallow it. I held back my tears, swallowing them down right along with it. The flesh of family is incredibly bitter, but I had to force it down even if it made me want to vomit. I had no choice. If I left her here, the scent of blood would just draw in an endless horde of monsters, and I'd end up as leftovers. 3 days later, I finally walked out of that cave. Even though I was only level 18, thanks to my broken cheat code of a high-tier Candle Dragon bloodline, I was already beefy enough to throw hands with level 30 low-tier monsters. I cracked my knuckles, making them pop like firecrackers, and let out a textbook God of War smirk as I stared into the endless abyss of the dungeon. My radar picked up 3 monsters nearby. Perfect timing. I was getting hungry anyway, and just like that, I took my very first step towards slaughtering my way out of this hellhole. Fast forward 5 days, I had been roaming outside the cave, completely wiping out every single minotaur in the vicinity. After snacking on the very last minotaur, a crisp notification chimed in my head, and my level hit 20. Notification: you have reached the maximum level for your current tier. You can no longer gain experience points. Please select an evolution path immediately to unlock your new level cap. Option 1. Candle Dragon Fledgling. The official, purest evolution path can contain and process vastly more mana or magicules. Option 2. Small Fledgling, a generic evolution path for small dragons, greatly enhances senses and agility. Option 3. Deteriorated Candle Dragon, an unconventional, alternative evolution path, unlocked by surviving in harsh environments for a period of time, offers superior vitality and agility, but limits the future growth of your mana and physical size. Looking at the holographic pop-up, I finally figured out the rules of this world. Progression happens in tiers of 20 levels. If I wanted to keep leveling up, I had to evolve. But right as I was scratching my chin, debating which path to pick, a suffocating pressure slammed into my back. My danger instincts instantly screamed red alert. I whipped my head around and realized that, out of nowhere, I had been completely surrounded by no less than 20 subspecies Kodo beasts. And out from behind the crowd stepped a massive, terrifying, blood-red Goliath of a beast. I quickly scanned it. Target: subspecies Kodo Beast Chieftain, combat specialized, level 88. Type: rare, quasi-mid-tier monster. Seeing that absolute monstrosity of a stat line, my heart skipped a beat. This was a setup. The Kodo chieftain had intentionally laid a trap using the minotaurs as bait to lure me into a textbook ambush, but I was genuinely confused. I haven't been here long and I don't remember borrowing money from them. Why were they suddenly gunning for me? Then it clicked. I booted up my telepathy skill to strike up a chat. The Kodo chieftain let out a cold snort, his voice booming in my mind. To think the little pest who's been stealing our food lately was actually a pint-sized runt like you. Ah, mystery solved. Turns out, minotaurs are the staple diet for Kodo beasts. Because I wanted to practice my combat skills and because my gluttony skill gave me an absolutely bottomless stomach, I had been hunting minotaurs like they were going out of style. The local minotaur population had tanked, which meant these oversized lizards were facing a severe famine. Even so, I just shrugged. In a place like this, if you act like a pushover, people will ride you like one. That's the golden rule of the dungeon. I planted my feet, put my hands on my hips, tilted my head, and gave them my best arrogant smirk. Yep, I ate them. What about it? You guys ate my foster mom, so if you want a piece of me, step right up, boys. With a dramatic roar, a brilliant blue-green aura erupted around my body. I struck a fierce, badass pose, like I was ready to take on the whole army. Though inwardly, I was already calculating the fastest running route to save my own skin. The Kodo chieftain clearly didn't expect a shrimp who couldn't even match the size of one of his teeth to be this cocky. With a thunderous roar, he slammed his foot down and activated a skill, spatial compression. His colossal body practically teleported, instantly appearing right in front of my face. Simultaneously, the dozens of surrounding Kodo beasts let out a synchronized roar. A heavy debuff hit me. All sensation in my limbs vanished, leaving me completely paralyzed. If I took a direct hit from a monster whose level vastly outstripped mine, I was instantly history. In that microsecond, 1,000 different escape plans flashed through my brain, and every single one of them ended in me getting crushed. I was entirely out of options, zero chance of survival. Out of nowhere, a pillar of pure, blinding blue light erupted across the cavern. The completely blindsided Kodo chieftain was instantly swallowed whole by the massive energy beam. Several Kodo beasts standing nearby didn't even have time to shriek before they were vaporized into literal ash. As the heat wave cleared, a rhythmic, heavy thudding sound echoed from the distance. It sounded as if a literal mountain had grown legs and was taking a stroll. With every single step, the entire dungeon floor shook violently. My sixth sense went into absolute overdrive, screaming one word: death. Mustering every ounce of courage I had across 2 lifetimes, I peeked back over my shoulder. My heart flatlined. A creature as colossal and majestic as a mountain range filled my vision. I didn't even look at its face. My eyes locked onto the first line of data my truth skill managed to pull up. Target: Leviathan. Level: 355. Type: Supreme High-Tier Monster. Its presence was so overwhelmingly terrifying that besides its level and tier, my skill couldn't scan a single other stat. Everything else was just blocked out. I held my breath, not daring to even ponder why a literal floor boss was taking a walk in the shallow levels of the dungeon. I stayed perfectly still until the footsteps faded into complete silence, only then daring to exhale my first breath. My right leg had taken some collateral damage from the blast radius of that beam, rendering me temporarily immobile. After thinking it over, I decided to pull the trigger on my evolution right here. After double-checking that the coast was clear, I pulled the menu back up. Candle Dragon Fledgling was the orthodox choice, but it would make my physical body much larger, which would be a massive liability in the tight, cramped dungeons of this dungeon. Skip. After meticulously reading the descriptions, I tapped the screen. Deteriorated Candle Dragon. Stat-wise, even though it dilutes the bloodline slightly, I'm still a Candle Dragon at my core, meaning I can always optimize and purify my bloodline back to full strength later. Plus, its stat distribution is way more balanced. To survive in a chaotic, ever-changing dungeon, you don't need to be a one-trick pony. You need versatility and survival strategies. I close my eyes. Evolution command received. Process will complete in 10 seconds. As the system's pleasant voice echoed, a warm current rushed from my heart and flooded my entire body. The stinging pain, the biting cold, and the dizziness from blood loss vanished instantly. My starved, depleted body was suddenly pumping with boiling, vibrant blood. My old skin was beginning to peel away, and tough, fresh scales sprouted in their place. Before I could even fully savor the bizarre tingling sensation, it was over. Ding! Level increased to LV8 Tier 2. My sky blue scales had shifted into a deep, matte, dark purple, looking exponentially sturdier. Not only that, but every single one of my base stats had received a massive boost. As my dragon senses and environmental awareness expanded, I could instantly feel a massive shift in the atmosphere. Thanks to the casual stroll the Leviathan just took, the monster population on the entire first floor of the dungeon was plummeting in real time. The surviving monsters were fleeing in absolute terror, like a flock of scattered birds. I have no idea why a powerhouse boss like the Leviathan decided to come down to the first floor, but one thing was crystal clear. The status quo of this floor was about to be turned completely upside down. With that in mind, I decided to pack my bags and head straight down to the second floor of the dungeon. Not long after Mama Dragon passed away, I had actually stumbled upon the entrance to the second floor. The only reason I hadn't made the jump earlier was because once you go down to floor 2, it's a one-way ticket. You can't go back up to floor 1. Honestly, if the Leviathan hadn't shown up and forced my hand, I wouldn't have migrated so early. A few minutes later, I arrived at the entrance pit. I pinched my nose, closed my eyes, and took a literal leap of faith. After a brutally long freefall, I expected to nail a smooth superhero landing. Instead, I landed right on a jagged piece of discarded human armor. Let me tell you, the sheer unadulterated pain that shot up my rear end was unforgettable. But hey, it did make me realize one thing. Are humans actually the dominant species in this world? Ever since I hatched, I hadn't seen a single human soul. But right as I was lost in thought, a faint, incredibly subtle rustling sound echoed about 7 or 8 meters behind me. Oh crap, I thought. Is some monster trying to pull off a sneaky ambush? Panicking, I whipped my head around, and let me tell you, it is a very good thing I did, because the moment I looked, my long dormant romantic heart instantly started doing backflips. Right there, hiding in a dead-end corner of the cave, was a petite, slender girl, my first actual human sighting since getting reincarnated. And to top it off, she was a total babe. As a hardcore anime nerd who had been a certified single dog for 2 whole lifetimes, my brain instantly started cooking up some completely unrealistic romantic fantasies. But before I could even open my mouth to say hi, the girl shrieked in absolute terror, fell flat on her butt, and started frantically kicking her legs to scoot backward. Unfortunately for her, there was a solid rock wall right behind her. She was completely cornered. Her reaction left me totally baffled. I mean, come on. Look at me. I'm a chubby, adorable little baby dragon. Shouldn't girls be squealing about how cute I am? I lowered my posture, doing my best impression of someone trying to comfort a stray cat on the street, and carefully crept toward her. Hey there. I don't mean any harm. I just wanted to ask what you're doing here. But the second I spoke, the girl looked even more traumatized. Her lips were trembling as she muttered a bunch of completely nonsensical gibberish. If I fight, it's a 9 out of 10 chance I die, but if I don't, it's an absolute death sentence. And Grand Master King of Fighters, please grant me strength, or something weird like that. I was getting a bit impatient now, so I stepped forward to clear the misunderstanding. But the moment I got within 2 meters of her, she suddenly exploded with movement. Channeling every ounce of her life force, she whipped out a ferocious, blindingly fast roundhouse kick. Because I had my guard completely down and we were so close, her shin slammed dead center at the absolute weakest spot on my head. A text box immediately popped up in my vision, HP -1. I couldn't help but mentally sigh. Wow, so weak. I booted up my truth skill to scan her stats, and man, it was almost pitiful. Target, Xingyi, monk, level 19. Type, common human female. Reproduction value, fairly good. Stats like this would make her a walking snack even on the first floor. I honestly had no clue how she managed to survive long enough to make it to the second floor. Right now, the girl was crouching on the ground, clutching her leg in absolute agony. Her epic full-power kick hadn't done a single scratch to me, but the recoil has severely sprained her own right ankle. Yet in the very next second, completely ignoring her injured leg, she scrambled up like a maniac and bolted toward a nearby tunnel. Hey, wait! I cried out, fully intending to chase after her, but out of nowhere, a bunch of blood-stained demon spiders dropped from the ceiling, completely blocking my path over and over again. You see, dungeon monsters hunt based on the quality of a target's life essence. To these high-level bugs, a weak human girl wasn't even worth their time, whereas a premium high-tier dragon like me looked like a 5-star buffet. They all ignored her and swarmed me instead. While these spiders couldn't actually hurt me, by the time I squashed them all, the girl was completely gone. I was in a state of absolute despair. A genuine, real-life girl just ran away from me. How am I supposed to get my rusty, long-neglected spear back in action now? 5 days flew by, and I gradually adapted to life on the second floor. Unlike the first floor, the ecosystem here was way more diverse. Almost every single day, I bumped into 3 or 4 species of monsters I'd never even seen before. And yes, that included humans. Except every single human I found was either a cold corpse or a pile of gnawed-on bones. To be honest, I was still losing sleep over that mump girl from the first day. And look, it wasn't just my inner pervert talking, it was pure logic. Over the past few days, I hadn't just found random human remains, I had also spotted a massive trail of human footprints. Judging by the sheer volume, it looked like a massive expedition force of at least 200 to 300 people had marched through here. No matter what, I desperately wanted to find them. The dungeon environment is clearly unlivable for humans, so if they had the confidence to march in here with an army, it meant they definitely had a guaranteed method to get back out. At least, logically speaking, that made sense. And an exit was exactly what I was dreaming of. Unfortunately, my tracking skills apparently sucked, because my search yielded absolutely 0 results. Even when I did find something, it was just another grim pile of bones. Just as I was about to give up and leave this particular cavern, a sharp, needle-like chill shot straight up my spine. My instincts flared. Without even taking the time to look back, I let my muscle memory take over and executed a desperate side roll. Swoosh! A highly compressed blade of wind grazed the top of my head, slamming into the rock wall behind me and tearing out 4 gashes that were several feet deep, tearing through solid stone like a cat scratching a piece of paper. Before I could even process what just happened, I activated the enhanced hearing from my dragon senses. I picked up a tiny creature moving at an absolutely mind-boggling, impossible speed, closing in on me from behind. By the time I reacted, the thing was less than 50 centimeters from my back. My scalp went entirely numb. I didn't have a millisecond to look back. I threw myself into another frantic dodge as a set of razor-sharp claws missed me by a literal hair, scraping against my facial dragon scales. I rolled to the side and got back on my feet. wiping a small trickle of blood from the 4 new scratches on my face. A chilling, arrogant voice echoed through the dark. Dodged me twice and lived. No wonder you had the guts to barge into my territory. It seems you actually have a few tricks up your sleeve. Out from the darkness came the voice of a young girl. That 4-legged beast still lurking in the shadows slowly licked the blood off her claws. Then, like a human, she actually stood up on her hind legs. So, it seems you have the telepathy skill, huh? I guess that means we can communicate, but it doesn't matter. Since you stepped into my territory, don't even think about leaving here alive.
Meow.
Even though I couldn't see her face clearly, I could vividly feel the absolute mockery in her voice. The moment she finished speaking, her silhouette blurred, rushing me at a speed so ridiculous that the naked eye couldn't even track it. Working entirely alone, she somehow created the illusion that dozens of people were surrounding and ambushing me all at once. I never in a million years expected to run into such a troublesome enemy. Sure, as long as I protected my vitals and didn't get one-shotted, I wouldn't die immediately, but her absurd speed left me practically helpless. If this dragged on, she was going to play the long game and whittle my health bar down to 0, and she was absolutely playing for keeps. Facing this seemingly unwinnable situation, I decisively pulled up the Truth skill tree menu. I had actually spent some time studying this thing over the last few days. These skills look complicated, but most of them are just upgrades and branches of a main skill. You can't unlock them without the prerequisites. Luckily, I had already memorized the basic skill tree like the back of my hand just to handle an info unlock emergency like this. Unlock Dragon Perception, costs 1 skill point. Unlocked. Unlock Mental Concentration, costs 1 skill point. Unlocked. Unlock Pulse Detection, costs 5 skill points. Unlocked. As streaks of light shot across the skill tree, the icons for Dragon Perception and Mental Concentration lit up. I snapped my eyes open. Instantly, the world around me slowed down. I whipped around and threw a massive punch directly into the empty air behind me. My fist connected hard, sending an afterimage flying across the cave. Without wasting a single second, I followed up immediately, opening my jaws and unleashing a torrent of Grand Void Dragon Breath. Before the beats could even let out a shriek, a massive tidal wave of brilliant blue fire completely flooded the entire subterranean cavern. I stood there panting heavily, quickly checking my status. Man, that chunked a massive amount of my mana, but I didn't have time to worry about my stats because I suddenly noticed my experience bar hadn't budged a single millimeter, which meant the enemy wasn't dead yet. My heart instantly leapt into my throat. Taking a point-blank Grand Void Dragon Breath straight to the face is no joke. I cautiously crept forward until I saw the charred, smoking figure of the monster slumped in the corner. Only then did my racing heart finally slow down. But the moment I got a clear look at her appearance, my heart took a violent twist. Ding. Target: Mutated Nekomata. Level 51. Type: Demi-human. Rank: Legendary mid-tier monster. Reproduction value: extremely high. Looking at the holographic pop-up, a sharp pang of existential guilt flooded my chest. Oh my god, I almost beat a cat girl to death. Now, Nekomatas are pretty common monsters on the 2nd floor of the dungeon. They usually look like regular cats with just slightly more human-like faces and 2 tails. They're supposed to be ordinary, run-of-the-mill monsters. I never could have guessed that I'd casually stumble upon a Nekomata that had fully undergone humanoid transformation. Aside from the cat ears and the tails, she looked exactly like a human girl. And even though about 80% of her body was severely charred, I could tell that her original face was totally my type. For someone like me who usually slays without blinking, I suddenly found myself unable to deliver the finishing blow. I even felt a strange, sudden curiosity and appreciation for the wonders of life. What's wrong? Aren't you going to kill me? Meow? The cat girl glared at me with absolute fury, leaving me totally flustered and scratching my head. After standing there awkwardly for a long time, I finally coughed up a semi-believable excuse. Cat meat tastes bad. It's all sour and stringy. Plus, I don't really like transformed cat girls who are this skinny. The Nekomata let out a weak, hateful scoff. You think I look weak? Meow. So you're pitying me and can't bring yourself to eat me? You let me live this time, but next time I'll be the one to kill you. Meow. I didn't really take her threat to heart. Instead, I just asked, genuinely puzzled, why did you even ambush me in the first place? You have to understand, I keep my level 2 Dragon's Majesty aura turned on 24/7. Even though it doesn't do any actual damage, it basically acts as a massive neon sign telling other monsters, do not mess with me. Because of that, normal monsters usually don't dare to actively pick a fight with me. Seeing that she wasn't answering, I lowered my voice and repeated the question, trying to sound as intimidating intimidating as possible. The cat girl glared back at me with pure frustration. You barged into my territory, and then you had the nerve to take a dump right in the middle of it, meow. If I don't attack you, who am I supposed to attack? I froze, blinking in realization. Oh, right. When I first walked into this cave earlier, I did kinda relieve myself. I mean, feline monsters do have an incredibly strong sense of territory, but wait, this is a dungeon. Do real-world animal instincts even apply down here? And throwing logic out the window for a second, do female cats even territory mark like that? All that drama just for a little thing like, what do you mean little thing, meow? You're this strong, so you must be a boss-level predator on the second floor, right? How do you not even know basic common sense, meow? To be completely honest with you, I sighed, I've only been in this dungeon for less than a month. What? Impossible. The outside world is so beautiful. You can run around free in the forests, and if you're lucky, humans will take a liking to you and make you a mount. You get free food and shelter for life. Why would anyone willingly come to a godforsaken, desolate dungeon like this, meow? Is the outside world really that great? Hearing the Nekomata's words actually made me want to laugh. Sure, the monsters living in the surface forests might have plenty of food and safety, but because they don't go through the brutal, hellish training of the dungeon, they have absolutely zero defensive capabilities when humans launch a large-scale hunting campaign. As for becoming a human's mount, maybe a few select humans treat their mounts with genuine care, but the vast majority just strip away their freedom and ruthlessly exploit their value until there's nothing left. They're no different than chickens raised in a factory farm. After spending a month in this place, my biggest takeaway was simple. The dungeon is a slum for monsters, but it's also our true sanctuary. Of course, I was way too lazy to explain all that philosophical stuff to her. Right then, the cat girl began to writhe in immense pain. What are you still waiting for, meow? I lost. Just kill me. Do you just enjoy watching me suffer in agony, meow? There wasn't a single shred of fear in her voice. Quite the opposite, actually. She sounded like someone who was finally welcoming a long-awaited release. It instantly reminded me of what Mama Dragon had told me. We monsters born in the dungeon are cursed from birth. Up until now, I barely ever used my telepathy skill in combat. I was always terrified that if I heard a monster begging for its life right before dying, I'd go soft. But no matter what, deep down, I was still a human. I had basic empathy and pity. But let's be real, in a place like this, those exact emotions will get you killed. Now, maybe I was just letting my eyes get completely blinded by a pretty face, or maybe it was something else, but looking at the cat girl's utterly pitiful, miserable state, I actually hesitated. Still, I wasn't stupid enough to just give her a free pass and get assassinated by her down the road. But right as I raised my dragon claw to officially wrap things up, a cataclysmic explosion shattered the silence, freezing my claw right in midair. The entire second floor of the dungeon started shaking so violently, it felt like the world was spinning upside down. Are those humans at it again? They really have a death wish, meow, the Nekomata muttered. Hearing her words, I perked up and immediately interrogated her. What do you mean humans? Tell me everything. A while back, a massive army of humans came to raid the dungeon, meow, she explained, wincing, but the floor boss absolutely annihilated them. A few humans who looked like their leaders took the youngest kids and managed to escape. But a bunch of their strongest elite warriors got left behind and are still stuck here on the second floor, meow. Lately, they've been desperately trying to break through the boss to escape the dungeon, meow, but there's no way they can beat it, meow. They lose a ton of people every single time, meow. Judging by how massive that last explosion was, I bet the last remaining survivors are putting absolutely everything on the line for one final suicide mission, meow. In just a few sentences, she dropped a massive lore bomb containing every single keyword I desperately cared about. But before I could question her further, the solid rock wall right next to us shattered. An incredibly handsome young guy wielding a massive glowing golden greatsword crashing straight through the stone. Seeing a live human for the first time, my jaw practically hit the floor. The guy instantly locked eyes with me and the cat girl. His face went dead serious and he whipped around to scream back toward the hole he just made. Captain, there's a stray monster accomplice over here. I'll hold it off. You guys focus on the main beast. Leave this one to me. He immediately fell into combat stance, looking at me like it was a kill or or be killed showdown. I was completely flabbergasted by the sheer generational hatred radiating from his eyes. I opened my mouth, fully intending to explain that I was just a harmless, cute little tourist, but the moment the guy realized I could talk, he got even more fired up. Cold sweat literally poured down his face as he began aggressively talking to himself like an anime protagonist. A mythic tier baby monster? If I don't eliminate it right here and now, the next expedition force will have to face 2 of them. We'll never make it out alive. For the sake of future generations, I must cut it down even if it costs me my life. 100,000 imaginary swear words stampeded through my brain. Are you freaking kidding me? Wow, look at you building up this grand heroic narrative in your own head. I'm almost crying tears of admiration here, buddy. But did you even listen to a single word I said? The guy shook his greatsword, and in an instant, an absolutely overwhelming surge of battle intent erupted from every single pore of his body. His mana output suddenly skyrocketed by easily 10 times. With one explosive stride, he shot toward me like an arrow leaving a bow. I scanned him. Target, Holy Knight, level 32, first job advancement, type, elite human. This guy's base stats completely eclipse mine. If I were at 100% health, I could easily cheese him using my broken dragon skills. But right now, I was still heavily injured, meaning a head-on clash gave me a 0% win rate. Plus, I really wasn't trying to start a war with humanity on my first week here. After roughly 2 seconds of frantic hesitation, I dodged his incoming slash, scooped the charred cat girl up, threw her over my shoulder like a sack of potatoes, and bolted in the exact opposite direction of both the floor boss and the crazy knight. The Nekomata clearly didn't expect me to randomly charge her, pick her up, and kidnap her. What do you think you're doing, meow? I'm never gonna forgive you. Totally losing her mind, she started biting and scratching my smooth, bald dragon head. Shut up, I snapped. I reached around with one hand and pinched the scruff of her neck. Instantly, a deep blush flushed across the cat girl's face. Her one remaining ear drooped down and her entire body locked up like she had been flash frozen, completely unable to move. Meanwhile, the human knight had already caught up, closing the distance instantly. A literal downpour of golden energy blades rains from the sky. I twisted my body to dodge the slashes, screaming inside. If I were at full health, a total scrub like you wouldn't even be able to touch my shadow. But a tired dragon has to swallow his pride. I squeezed out every single drop of my remaining strength and ran like a maniac. And so, a human and a dragon turned into 2 streaks of light weaving through the dark tunnels of the dungeon in a high-stakes, high-speed chase. I honestly thought he'd give up after a few minutes, but nope. After 2.5 hours of a grueling marathon, he was clearly running on absolute fumes, yet he refused to stop. By this point, I was genuinely getting pissed off. If my calculations were right, his next attack was going to be his final, most devastating move. If he gave up right now, I'd gladly leave quietly to save my precious stamina. But if he actually dared to throw a literal life-sacrificing ultimate at me, I was absolutely going to cave his skull in. Unfortunately, he chose option B. The knight let out a ferocious battle cry, the veins all over his body literally bursting open as he funneled every last drop of his life force and battle aura into his golden greatsword. Facing this absolute all-or-nothing strike, I let out a heavy, disappointed sigh. Unlock invincibility. Cost 5 skill points. Skill Invincibility level 1 unlocked. The very next second, I turned myself into a literal heat-seeking missile, launching myself straight into his incoming mountain of sword aura. The golden energy beam was instantly punched through, forming a perfect spiral hole like it was nothing but cheap tissue paper. The knight couldn't comprehend it. How could a monster that had been running away like a pathetic rat suddenly launch a counterattack this terrifying? And how could his ultimate maximum power strike get penetrated so easily? But running completely out of mana and energy, he didn't get the chance to figure it out. My solid reinforced dragon headbutt slammed dead center into the knight's stomach. He let out a blood-curdling shriek as his body spun through the air like a high-speed electric fan. He flew backwards, smashing straight through dozens of thick stone pillars before finally embedding himself deep into a solid rock wall. The moment the invincibility buff wore off, my entire body turned into a puddle of mush and I collapsed onto the ground. I thought I could finally catch my breath, but a relentless string of system notifications flashed in front of me, making my head spin all over again. Ever since I evolved, the experience requirements had scaled up drastically, and it had been ages since I experienced a multi-level jump. This human's actual combat power was roughly on par with a Kodo beast, yet a total scrub like him just granted me 6 levels in one shot. I shot up from first evolution level 11 all the way to level 17, banking a grand total of nearly 12,000 experience points. Man, looking at these numbers, the system is practically begging me to become a serial killer. Main quest unlocked. System announcement. Defeat Floor 2 boss, Hand of Medusa. Quest reward, 50 unlock points. Hearing this voice, I practically jumped out of my skin. Think about it. I've been fighting tooth and nail, escaping death by a hair every single day up until now, and counting the 5 points I just got, I had only accumulated a grand total of 35 unlock points in my entire life. And now, a single quest was casually offering a whopping 50 points? How? Meow? Why did all your injuries instantly heal the moment you killed that human? And why did your aura suddenly spike so much in a single second? Meow? I whipped my head around to find a heavily scarred cat girl staring at me like I was an absolute freak of nature. She looked completely flabbergasted. Logically speaking, monsters are supposed to grow like any other living organism. Steady, gradual, step by step. Yet this weird, chubby baby dragon right in front of her had just executed one human, completely maxed out his health bar, and exponentially boosted his combat power in the blink of an eye. She had never seen anything like it. Faced with her panicked interrogation, my face remained smooth and emotionless. I casually looked at her and asked her, "So, do you want to die right here in this corner, or do you want to come with me and slaughter the Floor 2 boss?" What? Are you completely insane, Meow? That's the Floor 2 boss. The only reason it sits there guarding the entrance to Floor 3 is because it literally cannot move. Suddenly, a light bulb went off in the Nekomata's head. She stared at me, her eyes widening into saucers, and after a long silence, she finally squeaked. Wait, don't tell me you actually plan to kill the Hand of Medusa and go down to the 3rd floor, Meow? I didn't say a word. I just gave her a smug grin and a slow, confident nod. Completely ignoring her severe burns, the cat girl immediately started scolding me at the top of her lungs. "With your current strength, you can easily stop me, Meow. As long as you don't go poking the Hand of Medusa, you could literally walk around the entire 2nd floor like you own the place. Why the heck would you go risk your life, Meow? Didn't you just mention that those humans were raiding the Floor 2 boss specifically to leave the dungeon?" The second those words left my mouth, the Nekomata immediately caught my drift. Are you telling me you actually want to leave the dungeon, Meow? I gave her a knowing smile. Bingo! It looked like diving deeper into the dungeon really was the ticket to the outside world. Alright, spill it. How exactly do we get out of here? Are you trying to trick info out of me, Meow? So what if I am? You already blabbed the main part, so you might as well give me the full picture. And why on earth should I help you? She barked back viciously. Hey, it's totally fine if you don't want to talk. I actually happen to have a skill that lets me invade and ransack your brain directly. The only downside is that it causes absolutely excruciating mind-melding agony. If you won't talk, I'll just download the files straight from your skull. The second I said that, the cat girl's face turned completely pale. Skills like that weren't exactly a rarity in the dungeon. Once you hit the 3rd floor and up, mental-type monsters use them all the time. Seeing her begin to waver, I immediately pressed my advantage, executing a perfect carrot and stick routine. Look, if you tell me everything and agree to cooperate, not only will I let you live, but I'll also completely heal all your injuries. To be completely transparent, I did technically have a memory extraction skill available on my tree, but it cost a hefty 20 unlock points. If I could avoid it, I really didn't want to blow my precious savings on that. Hearing my offer, the cat girl's ears twitched. After a long hesitation, she cautiously locked eyes with me again. Are you telling the truth, Meow? I slapped my chest proudly. A gentleman's word is a bond. I don't break promises. After a bit more back and forth, I finally learned that while humans usually use high-level teleportation magic to exit, which is practically impossible for monsters to learn, there is a universal backdoor for creatures like us. You have to fight your way down from the 1st floor all the way to the 5th. If you manage to slay the final ultimate boss, boss on floor 5, you get a free pass to leave the dungeon and head to the surface world. Hearing that made me shudder a bit with excitement. Then I got curious. By the way, if monsters are supposed to move between independent floors, how did you see the Leviathan on floor 1? She nodded knowingly. Oh, the Leviathan is a total exception, meow. He was the personal mount of an ancient god. He's literally the strongest creature in this entire interconnected dungeon ecosystem. He can freely wander through any floor he pleases. Nobody can kill the Leviathan, and absolutely nobody can stop him, meow. The only reason he stays in the dungeon at all is simply because he feels like guarding it. So honestly, you wanting to escape the dungeon? It's just a pipe dream, meow. By the time she finished her speech, the cat girl seemed to have completely run out of steam. She slumped onto the cold stone floor, panting heavily. Because of her severe burns, her HP bar was ticking down in real time. At this rate, she was going to kick the bucket in less than 10 minutes. Looking at her on the verge of death, I sighed. I opened my menu, spent 4 unlock points, and picked up a basic healing skill along with water condensation. I channeled the magic, and within seconds, all of her severe burns and wounds completely vanished. She literally sprang up from the ground like a startled cat, staring at her own hands and feet in sheer disbelief. What did you just do, meow? Look, I can't guarantee 100% that we'll make it out of this dungeon alive, but I can guarantee that as long as you're with me, you'll never have to worry about food or shelter on the second floor ever again. So, you want to team up? The cat girl still hadn't fully processed the shock. She stared blankly at this bizarre baby dragon for a long time before mumbling, You really mean we're going to go fight the Hand of Medusa? Meow? I nodded. You're incredibly strong. Honestly, you're the strongest monster I've bumped into on this floor so far. Hearing that, her ears instantly perked up with immense pride. Well, obviously, meow. Aside from that freak Medusa, I am officially the apex predator of floor 2, meow. Then her tone shifted, her eyes narrowing. But wait, why should I go risk my life for you, meow? Think about it. Once you help me kill the Hand of Medusa, you'll be the undisputed big boss of the entire second floor, the ultimate queen of the floor. Doesn't that sound incredibly badass? The moment those words hit her ears, they twitched violently. She lowered her head, her lips silently moving as she tasted the words. Big boss, queen, big boss, queen. 2 seconds later, she snapped her head up, her face completely flushed bright red, and eagerly blurted out, Fine, since you saved my life, I guess I'll tag along and help you out this once. By the way, are you supposed to be a dragon or a dog, meow? I'm a dragon, obviously. What part of me looks like a bird? You don't look like a bird at all, meow. Honestly, you look like a dog. Look at you, a chubby little black puppy with a fat belly and a dog face. From now on, I'm just going to call you Dog Thing, meow. My face went completely blank. Wow, irony much? Excuse me? You're calling me dog-like? You're the one who's a total dog. You literally dragged that poor human warrior in circles until he passed out from exhaustion before killing him. And you picked a fight with me only to get healed by me. Seriously, with the way you're acting, are you secretly trying to ask me to help you make babies or something? I am literally 1 month old. I haven't even grown all my adult scales yet, meow, she shrieked. Whatever, I don't care what you call me. What's your actual name? I don't have one. Dungeon monsters don't have names, there's no point. Alright, since you're calling me Dog Thing, I'm just going to name you Cat South North, meow. Hearing that, the cat girl's tail slammed against the floor in pure frustration. What kind of absolute garbage name is Cat South North, meow? Let's move, I said, turning around and waddling forward. Looking at my goofy, side-to-side waddling dragon butt, Cat South North pouted and muttered under her breath, For the record, I actually do have a real name, before quickly sprinting to catch up with me. A few minutes later, we arrived at the transition zone connecting the second and third floors. Peeking out of the shadows, we saw a squad of human soldiers locked in a brutal, bloody clash zerg-rush against the Hand of Medusa. I decisively signaled to hold position. We were going to sit back, enjoy the show, and sweep in to clean up the scraps like true gentlemen. See, ever since I arrived in this dungeon, I realized regular monsters don't have a concept of leveling up or skill trees. To them, leveling up is just a passive byproduct of staying alive. Skills are just instinctual tools for survival, and killing is strictly for filling their bellies. So, unless you're a rare mutant anomaly like Cat South North, a monster's level is usually determined purely by how many centuries they've managed to avoid getting killed. And as the undisputed boss of Floor 2, the Hand of Medusa had been alive for at least 500 years. Even though it was completely stationary, it acted as a terrifying, high-powered automated turret, locking down the main highway leading to Floor 3. Any human raid party or any ambitious monster trying to go deeper had no choice but to pass through this exact bottleneck. By just sitting here, a limitless buffet of prey literally delivered itself right to its doorstep. We watched as the human soldiers, driven by pure desperate bravery, launched one suicidal wave after another against the boss, only to get brutally slaughtered one by one. Judging by the scattered gear, their army must have started with at least 200 people. Now though, there were barely 10 guys left standing. Wow, humans are so incredibly stupid, meow. They clearly know they can't win, yet they keep rushing in to die, Cat South North whispered, watching the carnage with absolute fascination like she was front row at a comedy show. As for me, I just watched silently, my face completely expressionless. To be brutally honest, I didn't give a single crap whether these humans lived or died. My only hope was that they'd go absolutely apeshit and shave off as much of the Hand of Medusa's health bar as humanly possible. The boss's stat line was so violently overpowered that if I had to fight it at 100% health, I would have had a 0% chance of winning. Even though the human army's zerg-rush strategy was failing miserably, they were successfully chipping away at his health. The boss wasn't going to be this weakened again for a very long time. Plus, I didn't actually want all the humans to wipe out. The survivors were going to be incredibly useful to me later. With only 9 humans left standing, my brain went into overdrive, simulating every possible tactical scenario. The Hand of Medusa had a ridiculous perception stat of 8,000, meaning a stealth attack was completely off the table. But in a straight-up head-on brawl, even with its health depleted, I still stood no chance. Ultimately, I decided to dump every single one of my remaining unlocked points into Comet Strike. My plan was to dump all my cards into one massive explosive Alpha Strike to entirely delete its remaining health pool, and then finish it off in a war of attrition if it survived. It was my only path to victory. I dumped all my points. Win this, and I'm living like a king. Lose this, and I'm a permanent resident of the graveyard. Let's do this. Judging by my fight with that Golden Knight and what I was witnessing right now, I knew these humans were entirely built different. In a total dead-end situation, they would launch one final suicidal offensive. Right on cue, the 9 remaining soldiers leaned on each other to stand up, unleashed a synchronized war cry, and erupted with 9 pillars of red battle aura, lighting up the massive cavern like broad daylight. Seeing this, I knew my window had opened. I exchanged a quick glance with Cat South North, leaped into the shadows, and stealthily crept right up to the absolute edge of the boss's aggro range. Out on the field, the humans were dropping like flies. When the count trickled down to just 3, one of the soldiers literally turned himself into a meat shield, allowing the final 2 humans to successfully breach the Hand of Medusa's inner guard. They leaped high into the air, driving a spear and a broadsword deep into the lower jaw of the giant head. The Hand of Medusa unleashed a blood-curdling, hysterical shriek. Because its physical defense was sitting at a flat 0, the attack from these 2 puny humans managed to chunk over 1,000 points of its health. Seizing the perfect opening, Cat South North transformed into a silver streak of light, blitzing straight toward the giant snakeheads on top. But against the monster with 8,000 perception, she was still moving in slow motion. dozens of viper heads whipped around instantly, as if they knew exactly where she was going to strike from the very start. Look who it is, the eternal runner-up of Floor 2 trying to play the vulture. Perfect, I've been wanting to eat you for a long time anyway. That's exactly what the giant boss was thinking. But what the giant boss completely failed to account for was that there was a third party on the battlefield. Skill activated, weakness break. Instantly, several glowing red targets highlighted themselves across the hand of Medusa's body. Those spots were its absolute critical flaws. Hitting them would trigger maximum damage multipliers. Having already fully charged my attack, I focused my mind, took one explosive step forward, and shattered the ground. The surrounding debris shot straight into the sky as I turned myself into a literal kinetic missile, melting the stone pillars along my path into pure lava. Comet Strike, level 5. This skill takes every single one of my base attributes, multiplies them by 4, and funnels all that raw data directly into the skill's destructive output. A maximum output pulse-infused Comet Strike carried a level of heat and kinetic pressure that was completely off the charts. The shockwave instantly shredded the incoming vipers into a slurry of raw meat. The hand of Medusa let out a bizarre, horrifying shriek that sounded like 1,000 people screaming in unison. The impact completely caved in the back of its skull. Its colossal body, which hadn't moved a single centimeter in over 400 years, was launched clean off its pedestal, flying 100 meters through the air before embedding itself deeply into the far cavern wall. I didn't even bother checking my own status or healing. I whipped my eyes toward the dust cloud, and the second I saw its health bar officially hit 0, the massive weight lifted off my chest. A few meters away, the 2 surviving human knights stared at the crater in absolute shock, unable to comprehend the fact that they had just been saved by a monster. Ronin, we actually lived? The Floor 2 boss is dead? Yeah, Zhangyu, it looks like a classic case of 2 monsters fighting over territory, and we got lucky. We survived. The older square-jawed knight named Ronin let out a breath filled with immense relief. So, what do we do now? The younger knight, Zhang Yue, asked. Ronin swallowed hard, the relief in his eyes quickly twisting into cold, calculated murder. No matter what, a monster is a monster. That dragon-type hatchling is small right now, but I can feel the overwhelming pressure radiating from its core. If we let that thing grow up, it will become an existential threat to humanity. Ronin picked up a shattered blade from the ground and began limping heavily toward me. We're never walking out of this hellhole alive anyway. Being able to take down both the hand of Medusa and this dragon hatchling is the greatest legacy we can leave for the people above. Hearing this, Zhang Yue hesitated for a fraction of a second, but ultimately picked up his weapon as well. I could hear every single word they were saying perfectly. If you want a textbook definition of biting the hand that feeds you, these 2 clowns were it. But honestly, I didn't care. In fact, this was exactly according to plan. Comet Strike had completely drained my stamina bar down to 0. In this state, the absolute fastest way to completely restore my condition was a classic level up. And humans, they're incredibly weak, yet they give a ridiculous amount of experience. I was already planning to harvest them to top off my health. If they had actually broken down in tears of gratitude, my pesky human conscience might have made it awkward to pull the trigger. But since they chose treachery, I couldn't have asked for a better excuse. But right as the 2 knights raised their weapons and I prepared to counter-kill them, a sudden crash echoed through the cave again. From the exact spot where the hand of Medusa's head had been caved into the wall, a massive viper erupted forward, snapping its jaws shut and biting Ronin clean in half at the waist. I recognized that viper instantly. It was one of the snakes making up Medusa's hair. That's when a terrifying realization hit me. Wait a minute, if the boss is dead, why didn't my experience bar budge at all? Hearing the deafening collective hissing echoing from the rubble, my survival instincts that had honed over the past month took over. In one fluid motion, I drove a dragon claw straight through Zhang Yue's chest cavity. Level up. Current status, fully restored. A surge of vibrant energy instantly restored me back to absolute peak condition. What the hell is going on, Meow? Didn't the hand of Medusa just die? Why are these snakes still moving? Cat South North shrieked, her fur standing completely on end. My scalp went completely numb as the horrifying truth dawned on me. Crap, we got completely played. The massive, giant human-like head of the Hand of Medusa was nothing but a giant decoy puppet. The actual boss wasn't the head, it was the hundreds of independent viper demons growing out of it. The skull was just a central hub providing them with a network connection and cellular regeneration. Right now, the hundreds of vipers were splitting into two massive waves, half of them surging toward me and the other half swarming Cat South North. There were way too many of them, capable of striking from literally any blind spot. And the worst part, the system treated all hundreds of vipers as a single shared health pool entity. Snapping a few of their necks did absolutely zero meaningful damage to the boss as a whole. But I still had an ace up my sleeve. I casually tore an incoming viper to shreds and glanced over at Cat South North. Even with her incredible agility advantage, she had only managed to slice down 5 or 6 of them. I knew that if we kept playing defensively, we were going to get completely buried and suffocated by numbers. I flashed a look at Cat South North, signaling her to drop back and group up on me. In this separated viper form, the Hand of Medusa's combat speed had massively increased, but losing the central head meant it completely lost its regeneration capabilities and magic resistance. As long as I could drop a massive, high-caliber AoE spell to wipe all the vipers out in one shot, the Hand of Medusa would stay dead for good. And as luck would have it, I possessed the perfect tool for the job: Grand Void Dragon Breath. This is the ultimate signature spell that every single member of the dragon race unlocks at birth, capable of dealing an absolute nuclear amount of AoE damage to everything in the vicinity. And if I stacked it with Comet Strike, the combination would let me grind my own health bar down to a single point, converting every single bit of my life force and base stats into pure, raw, destructive output for the breath attack. The only downside was that using it would place me in a near-death state. If I wasn't completely backed into a corner, I would never dream of playing a card this risky. Cat South North managed to sprint right back to my position. The exact millisecond she reached me, I raised the Dragon Claw and smacked her, launching her flying back out of the blast zone. Facing the remaining 200 plus Viper demons closing in from both left and right, I came to a dead stop, planting my feet firmly right in the center of the cavern. I opened my jaw to its absolute limit, and a titanic torrent of blue dragon fire completely packed every single cubic inch of the cave. The 200 plus Viper demons didn't even get a microsecond to react before being entirely erased by the blinding, incinerating heatwave. But as I watched the Vipers get reduced to smoking charcoal, I didn't feel a single drop of joy. Why? Because after the heatwave cleared, my experience bar was still dead quiet. The Hand of Medusa hadn't actually died. Right as I was frantically scanning the smoky cave, a single golden viper suddenly shot out from the bedrock beneath me, unhinging its jaws and lunging straight for the dead center of my forehead. It was moving at such a ridiculous velocity that all I could perceive was a blurry golden streak. In my absolute bottomed out condition, getting hit by that meant instant death, no questions asked. But right at that razor-thin split-second moment, Cat South North, who was supposed to be hiding safely behind the rocks, suddenly materialized out of nowhere, throwing her entire body right in front of me to act as a living shield. The sound of shattering bones echoed painfully as the golden viper bit down ruthlessly on her arm, causing her already microscopic HP bar to instantly plummet all the way down into the single digits. Gritting her teeth through pure agony, she channeled the absolute last shred of her remaining strength, grabbed the golden snake, and tore it into 3 or 4 ragged chunks before hurling it away. I whipped up my truth skill to scan the debris. Holy crap! Turns out that golden snake was the Hand of Medusa's hidden core beast. But more importantly, I had just been saved by a cat girl whose IQ I regularly mocked. I looked down at her fractured, dangling arm, completely bewildered. Why the hell did you save me? Logically speaking, letting the core beast execute me and then sweeping in to kill it yourself would have been the smartest play for you. Cat South North's face was deathly pale, but she managed to force a weak, painful grin. Didn't we already agree, Meow? We kill this monster, I become the supreme boss of floor 2, and you beat it down to floor 3. Besides, you just saved my life a second ago. There's no way I was going to sit back and watch you die, Meow. Hearing her incredibly pure, innocent logic made me feel a bit warm inside. Contrast that with the absolute treachery of those 2 human knights from earlier, and I realized I seriously needed to reevaluate my humans are the good guys, monsters are the bad guys surface world mindset. I marched over to the twitching core beast, raised my foot, and completely crushed its head into paste. Then I picked it up, tossed it into my mouth, chewed a couple of times, and swallowed it whole. System announcement. Main quest completed. 50 unlocked points have been credited to your account. Ding! Current level increased to tier 1 level 20. Evolution requirements met. The second that sweet quest completion ding echoed in my ears, the suffocating tension finally left my body. I collapsed on my butt, panting like a marathon runner. Right on cue, Cat South North let out a joyful squeal, lunged forward and gave me a massive bone-crushing hug, aggressively rubbing her face against mine. And look, I have to be mathematically objective here. As a transformed demi-human, her upper assets were genuinely spectacular. After using mental concentration and my healing spell to fully patch up her broken arm and burns, I surveyed the area. With the hand of Medusa officially dead, the massive sinkhole leading down to the 3rd floor was completely open and undefended. But just as I stood at the edge, preparing to take the dive, Cat South North bit her lip, looking incredibly reluctant. Hey, the 2 of us make such an overpowered duo, Meow. If you're willing to stay behind, we would be completely invincible on this 2nd floor, Meow. She paused, her face suddenly flushing a violent, bright crimson before she loudly blurted out, I mean, you're super smart and I'm super strong. I'll be the queen of floor 2 and you can be my personal head strategist, Meow. I blinked, completely caught off guard by her sudden career proposal. I just shrugged. Nah, I'll pass. I still prefer a bright blue sky and the warmth of a real sun. Without waiting another second, I took a step forward and plunged straight down into the pitch black abyss. Cat South North scrambled to the edge to chase after me, but my telepathic echo was already floating up from the darkness. There's nothing left on floor 2 that can threaten you anymore. If fate allows it, let's meet again, Cat South North. To her, the floor 3 pit might look like a death sentence, but to me, it was the only highway to freedom. Except the exact next second, I deeply regretted my life choices. Floor 1 with a standard rocky cavern. Floor 2 was a muddy, damp tunnel system. Floor 3, I was absolutely not prepared for. Floor 3 was a colossal, open-world tundra of pure ice and snow. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but blinding white frost, and the thermometer was registering a casual negative 150 degrees Celsius. Shivering violently as my health bar started actively ticking down from frostbite, I frantically booted up my tier 2 evolution menu. And man, the options left me shaking even harder. The first 3 paths were identical to my previous evolution choices, but tucked away at the bottom was a brand new premium option. Option 4, Microscopic Ice Dragon, rank Rare Bloodline, unlocked by maintaining a fierce, desperate desire for a heat source while enduring extreme sub-zero conditions. Talent unlocked, Absolute Ice Immunity. Watching my HP steadily drop, I didn't waste a single millisecond. I smashed the button for Microscopic Ice Dragon. Just like before, accompanied by the system's comforting chime, the evolution completed in the blink of an eye. The dark purple scales coating my body dissolved away, replaced by ice-resistant armor. But right as I was about to open my character sheet to check out my newly buffed stats, a very familiar high-pitched shriek echoed from the sky directly above me. I looked up just in time to see a massive, flailing silhouette falling at terminal velocity. Because I was completely caught off guard, I didn't even have time to dodge before she scored a perfect bullseye right on top of my head. Hey, I thought I told you to get out of the way, Meow. Yep, Cat South North had literally jumped down after me. After exploring the area for a couple of weeks, we quickly realized floor 3 was a completely different beast compared to floor 2. It was a boundless kingdom of glaciers. And even the monsters here were made of a strange, semi-transparent crystalline ice. They literally look like walking ice sculptures. And their levels? Every single trash mob was sitting at level 70 or higher. To power level as fast as possible so we could breach this floor, Cat South North and I decided to set up a grinding routine. After 2 weeks of absolute non-stop grinding and ruthlessly slaughtering thousands of these ice sculpture monsters, my level officially hit tier 2 level 8. Since your level resets back to 1 with every evolution tier, my actual combat power was now equivalent to a level 88 dungeon boss. Meanwhile, because we were grouped up, Cat South North's level had rocketed from 51 all the way to 75. But as my levels scaled up, I started noticing something incredibly fishy about this glacial canyon. The monsters roaming outside the canyon were lower leveled, so we had spent most of our time grinding deep inside the ravines. The frost wolves outside looked like ice sculptures, sure, but their blood was semi-transparent and their meat was white. They were actual biological living creatures. But the frost wolves inside the canyon, they were made of 100% solid, pure ice. Zero flesh, zero blood. Most importantly, back when I was tier 2 level 5, killing one of them granted a solid 200 XP. But now at level 8, even after unlocking my accelerated growth perk, which grants double experience, killing a canyon wolf only netted me a pathetic 50 XP. A terrifying realization dawned on me. I signaled to Cat South North and we began pushing even deeper into the canyon. Along the way, we bumped into a massive variety of monsters, but without exception, every single one of them possessed a body made of pure ice. They had no consciousness, no intelligence, and they couldn't communicate at all. The absolute peak of this horror show happened when we pushed into the deep zone and I found a human figure made entirely of solid, flawless ice. This completely confirmed my theory. Every single monster inside this canyon wasn't an actual living creature. They were all artificial summons. And since the canyon was packed to the brim with high-level summons, it meant the entity casting them had to be an absolute broken powerhouse. The mastermind behind this was almost certainly the floor 3 boss, the Ice Emperor. Cat South North and I marched continuously for 3 days, farming these icy summons along the way. I managed to hit tier 2 level 11, and Cat South North climbed up to level 75. But while leveling up fully replenishes your physical health, it does absolutely nothing to fix your mental exhaustion. Having marched and fought with virtually zero sleep, Cat South North was literally swaying side to side like a zombie as she walked. "I'm totally spent, meow. Can we please just take a quick nap, meow? The floor 3 boss is right around the corner," I said, keeping my eyes fixed ahead. "Look, if you're truly exhausted, you can take a breather right here. With your speed, you can easily catch up to me in an hour." Hearing that, Cat South North looked incredibly torn. There was zero chance she was going to leave me to wander into a boss room entirely solo. She bit her lip, forced her trembling legs to keep moving, and hurried to match my pace, muttering under her breath, "Stupid dog thing. Lately, you've been acting pretty weird, meow. Why are you so obsessed with killing these floor bosses?" Cat South North asked, trying to keep up. "Because I need to level up as fast as possible, slaughter the Leviathan, and get the hell out of this place," I replied, short and sweet. No matter what kind of freakish monster form I took, deep down, I was still a human who craved the peaceful, quiet life. This godforsaken dungeon was never meant to be my forever home. Cat South North opened her mouth to argue, but seeing the absolute determination in my eyes, she just bit her lip and forced her exhausted legs to follow me. Right then, the narrow canyon walls suddenly opened up into a massive, clearing field, causing me to instantly halt my steps. "Why'd you stop, meow?" I found the floor 3 boss. Following my gaze, Cat South North looked out across the wide, desolate, icy plain. Right in the center, sitting majestically on a massive nest of frost, was a gigantic ice phoenix. It looked like it had been quietly anticipating our arrival the entire time. I quickly scanned its stats. Target, Ice Emperor. Level, 176. Type, rare, quasi-high tier monster. Reproduction value, extremely high. This was the first time I had ever seen a stat block with 4 separate attributes sitting in the 5-digit range. It was hard to believe this monster was merely the boss of the 3rd floor. But hey, Raw numbers are just numbers. In a real fight, skill execution, battlefield tactics, and sharp intuition are what actually crown the winner. I took a confident step forward. To my surprise, the Ice Emperor actually initiated the conversation, her voice echoing telepathically. "Why do you dare disturb my peaceful solitude?" Since she was down to chat, I didn't mind wasting a few words. "The exit to the 4th floor is right under your nest, isn't it? We're heading down. If you step aside, we don't have to turn this into a bloodbath." The Ice Emperor slowly rolled her crystal-like eyes. After a long silence, she murmured, "I see. So you two wish to become playmates for my beloved child as well." With the absolute last drop of my patience officially evaporated, I stopped talking. I triggered the explosive kinetic force of Pulse, transforming my body into a blue-green comet as I launched myself straight at the boss. I unhinged my jaws and fired 3 consecutive Grand Void Dragon Breaths right at her face. Simultaneously, Cat South North unleashed the flurry of her front claws, sending dozens of razor-sharp wind blades raining down onto the giant bird. Our combined, all-out effort hit like a hurricane, violently shaving the Ice Emperor's health bar all the way down to a mere 20%. But I didn't celebrate. In fact, a cold sweat broke out across my scales. Throughout the entire opening burst, the Ice Emperor hadn't even attempted to dodge or fight back. She just sat perfectly still in her nest like a glorified target dummy, taking every single bit of our ultimate attacks without moving an inch. My sharp combat instinct screamed that something was horribly wrong. Right as I opened my jaws to charge up one final, decisive Grand Void Dragon Breath, the ground shattered. From dozens of deep crevices surrounding the canyon, hundreds of those pure ice summon monsters suddenly burst out onto the plain. At that exact millisecond, the previously immovable Ice Emperor finally made her move. She unleashed a massive spread of her crystal wings. The hundreds of ice summons rushing forward suddenly began to melt in real time, dissolving into pure glacial mana that rushed straight into the Ice Emperor's body. In the blink of an eye, her bottomed out health bar shot straight back up to a flawless 100% max health. My heart instantly plummeted through the floor. It looked like the Ice Emperor was officially done playing games. She gave a violent flap of her wings, unleashing a localized sub-zero hurricane. The extreme frost hit me instantly, freezing my limbs from the tips of my claws inward. Within a single heartbeat, my entire torso was encased in solid ice. My consciousness began rapidly fading, detaching from my body. In my final dying moments of awareness, I heard a desperate, tearful shriek. "Stupid dog thing, run! You miscalculated! We are no match for her! Meow!" And then, everything went completely black. When my consciousness finally drifted back online, I had no idea how much time had passed. I cracked my eyes open and realized I was no longer in the canyon. Instead, right in front of my face was a massive, bald reptilian head that looked like a 200-year-old grandpa, smiling warmly down at me. "Ah, you're finally awake." A blood-curdling, high-pitched shriek echoed across the snowy tundra. A minute later, I was huddled on the ground a few meters away, panting heavily with my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked up at the colossal, bizarre beast, still unable to believe that it hadn't casually snacked on me while I was unconscious. Not only that, but it had actually used its massive hulking body to shield me from the sub-zero blizzard, waiting patiently for a whole day and night until I woke up. Wow, I thought, there are actually good guys in this hellhole? My entire cynical worldview is shattered. So you're the one who saved me?" I asked telepathically, testing the waters. The giant bald-headed monster looked incredibly surprised. "Oh, you can communicate? You have telepathy too?" I nodded awkwardly. "Bro, didn't I literally just speak out loud a second ago?" The giant tilted his massive head, letting out a goofy chuckle. "Ah ha ha, my bad, my bad. I've lived for way too long, so my short-term memory is absolutely shot. But to answer your question, no, I didn't save you. Your friend did." I froze. "My friend? You mean that cat girl? Cat South North?" The second the realization hit me, a flood of fragmented memories rushed back into my brain like a movie reel. I vividly remembered the terrifying moment the Ice Emperor's sub-zero frost completely paralyzed my body. But right before I went under, Cat South North had lunged forward through the blizzard, using every single drop of her remaining strength to physically hurl my frozen body clean out of the Ice Emperor's aggro zone. "Stupid dog thing, king. You better come back and rescue me, meow. Otherwise, I'm definitely not having your babies, meow. Recalling her final words, I fell to my knees in the snow. My chest tightened violently as if an invisible giant hand had reached inside and was ruthlessly crushing my heart. The crushing weight of reality and absolute powerlessness hit me like a physical tidal wave, completely swallowing me whole. If I had just been a tiny bit more cautious, today's disaster would never have happened. If that cat hadn't moved when she did, the one turning into a frozen popsicle in the Ice Emperor's clutches right now would have been me. When that Nekomata threw you up onto the outer ridge of the glacial valley, I just happened to be passing by. The old grandpa monster chimed in, breaking the silence. To be completely honest, it's rare to see a monster of your caliber roaming around the 3rd floor anymore. So I figured I'd carry you back. Back when I fought in the Primordial War, I had a friend just like that too. He paused, looking at my quiet demeanor, his bald head tilting in confusion. But you don't look sad at all. Was that cat girl not your friend? She is my friend. A very stupid cat. Then what should I do? Sit here and cry? I snapped, spinning around and marching directly back toward the glacial valley. Seeing my trajectory, the old Goliath immediately shuffled his massive frame, completely blocking my path. Why are you stopping me? I growled. Because I see a young hatchling actively marching to his death, the old monster replied calmly. Stopping you is the duty of an elder. Cat South North is dead. She died because of me. Taking revenge for her is my duty. My words slammed down like iron, vibrating with absolute, unyielding finality. The old monster didn't argue. Instead, his gaze slid slightly downward. Following his eyes, I realized I was clenching my dragon claws so hard that my blue-green blood was literally oozing out from between my knuckles. The old grandpa let out a warm, knowing smile, as if he just remembered a very fond memory. After a long pause, he finally spoke. What if I told you that your little cat friend isn't actually dead yet? Hearing those words was like catching a lifeline while drowning. I whipped my head back around so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. Looking at his smiling, wrinkled face, I could tell he wasn't pulling my leg. The Ice Emperor's summons look so incredibly realistic because her summoning technique isn't standard magic. It's a unique forbidden spell called Flesh and Bone Artifact Creation. Since the Primordial era, less than 10 entities have ever successfully unlocked this skill. It's easily one of the rarest abilities in existence. Normally, a summon is much weaker than the original creature, right? But this specific spell creates clones that are identical, or sometimes even stronger than the original template. He cleared his throat, continuing to lecture. That's because it doesn't just copy them, it plunders them. It traps a living creature, executes them, but traps their soul while erasing their consciousness, using pure ice to remold the physical shell. Honestly, calling them summons is a misnomer. They're literal puppets. That's exactly why you still gain experience points when you kill them. Every single monster you ran into inside that canyon was a puppet of the Ice Emperor. Floor 3 is entirely under her thumb. Aside from the absolute bottom tier trash mobs, anyone with an ounce of real strength has already been turned into a frozen doll. This massive lore bomb left me completely stunned. Okay, that's wild and terrifying, but what does any of that have to do with Cat South North still being alive? I demanded. While the Flesh and Bone spell is unbelievably broken, its biggest flaw is its execution speed. It requires ice element magic to slowly, meticulously replace the victim's physical body at a cellular level. Only by doing it this slowly can it perfectly anchor and preserve a flawless soul. Judging by that Nekomata's base attributes, the transformation process will take roughly 2 weeks. As long as you can slaughter the Ice Emperor within 14 days, you can use your healing magic to completely pull her back from the brink. 2 weeks. The spark of hope ignited in my chest instantly. Foster mom's death was already a massive bleeding wound on my conscience. If Cat South North ended up dead because of me too, I was going to live the rest of my life in a permanent state of guilt. This news was the ultimate shot of adrenaline I needed. If my reckless charging got her captured, then dragging her back out was officially my responsibility. Thank you, Senior, I said, offering a respectful nod. I know exactly what I need to do now. The old monster let out a hearty, booming laugh. Well, I've lived for far too long, and it's not every day I get to see a baby candle dragon waddling around, so I figured I'd kill some time by bailing you out. Wait, what? A jolt of pure panic shot through me. Right now, I was supposed to be a microscopic ice dragon. My premium candle dragon bloodline had been completely hidden away behind 2 layers of evolutionary tiers. How on earth did this bald old grandpa see straight through my character sheet? Then another major red flag popped up in my brain. He literally just said that every single monster on floor 3 with any real strength had been hunted down and turned into a puppet by the Ice Emperor. But looking at this colossal, weird-looking beast, there was zero chance he qualified as a bottom-tier trash mob. So how the heck did he escape her clutches? A mischievous, knowing smirk danced across the old monster's eyes, as if he was actively reading my internal monologue. "Oh, come on," he chuckled. "Don't you possess that ultra-rare cheat code skill? Truth? That's a literal developer exploit, you know? Aside from you, I've only ever seen one actual god possess that skill since the dawn of the primordial era. Why don't you just cast it on me right now and see for yourself?" My jaw hit the snow. The absolute shock was beyond words. He didn't just know my hidden species, he knew my exact skill inventory. "Then please excuse my rudeness, senior," I muttered. Locking my focus, I raised my eyes and cast Truth directly onto the colossal, weird-looking beast. The exact millisecond the data loaded into my vision, my eyes rolled back, my knees turned into absolute jelly, and I fell flat on my butt in the snow. Because the creature sitting in front of me was a transcendent divine beast whose level completely made the Leviathan look like a joke. Target, Babylon. Level, 413. Type, Transcendent Divine Beast. Who the hell are you? My voice was trembling so violently I could barely squeeze the words out. But Babylon just gave me a silent, enigmatic smile. He turned his gaze toward the endless blue of the subterranean sky, his lips curling into a gentle grin as if he were replaying an incredibly beautiful, ancient memory. After a long silence, he softly murmured a poem. "Once clashed with millions of demon kings, dividing day from night with a simple flick of my fingers. Dawn and dusk bowed to my whim, yet now I walk this world completely alone. I seek true tranquility, content to remain unknown to the world." Turns out, when the gods originally constructed this dungeon, they designed it as a dual-layered structure. But because Babylon grew utterly exhausted from centuries of endless combat and mortal politics, and with his massive body slowly aging, he retired to floor 3, which has the best scenery and climate. He left the much more aggressive and powerful Leviathan to run the rest of the dungeon operations. After listening to his casual history lesson, I could only let out a defeated, ironic laugh. I was barely halfway through this dungeon campaign, and I had already personally bumped into both final bosses. I had no idea if I should call myself incredibly lucky or cursed by God. But hey, at least unlike the feral Leviathan, Babylon was an approachable, polite senior who didn't want to eat me. "Senior, do you think I can actually defeat the Ice Emperor and rescue Cat South North?" I asked, looking down. Babylon didn't answer immediately. See, there's a reason he and Leviathan are placed together at the apex of the Eastern Dungeon. Leviathan is a symbol of raw power, while Babylon is the master of wisdom. He pondered for a brief moment before turning his massive head and asking me a question back. "This is a dungeon. Since the day you hatched, has there been a single monster you've slaughtered whose level wasn't higher than yours?" Looking into his gentle, ancient eyes, my entire body shuddered. That wasn't just old man encouragement. That was a profound, concentrated riddle from a literal sage. In a flash, the hidden meaning clicked in my brain. No matter how much Babylon pretended to stay out of worldly drama, he was still a dungeon boss, and the Ice Emperor was a boss too. He couldn't explicitly hand me a cheat sheet or an instruction manual on how to execute another boss. This was his subtle way of testing my potential. I lowered my head, thought it over for a blank silence, and then stood up with a grin. "Thank you, senior. I understand." I spun around and marched right back toward the glacial canyon. 2 weeks, or 10 days. Now, 2 weeks was a statistical gamble. Cat South North might snap under the cellular pressure. I only had 10 days. Subtracting the time I spent knocked out cold, I had exactly 9 days left on the clock. And let me tell you, I wasn't going to waste a single second of it. Standing right at the canyon's entrance, I bent down, picked up a massive chunk of ice weighing easily over 10 kilograms, focused my muscles and activated my pulse skill. I hurled it forward with everything I had. The kinetic force turned that ice block into a literal artillery shell, screaming through the canyon before smashing into a frozen cliffside 1,000 meters away with a cataclysmic crash. The deafening noise instantly agitated the Frost Canyon kites nesting on the walls. Within seconds, a swarm of 2,000 to 3,000 giant icy birds erupted from their hiding spots, blotting out the sky. Looking at the terrifying, overwhelming swarm closing in on me, I just let out a devious asymmetric grin. Think about it. The Ice Emperor relies entirely on her ice puppets to replenish her health bar. As long as there are puppets left breathing in this canyon, she's practically immortal. And guess what? Every single monster in this canyon had been turned into a puppet. Therefore, if I went on an absolute eco-terrorist campaign to eradicate every single summon here, I wouldn't just completely strip away her immortality exploits, I'd also harvest a metric crap ton of experience points for myself. It was a win-win. Before re-entering the danger zone, I pulled up my menu and spent 40 unlock points to upgrade my evolutionary growth skill to level 2. This broken passive automatically granted me 2 experience points per minute, even when I was chilling out of combat, and it multiplied my kill experience by a flat 4 times. I dropped into a boxing stance and beckoned the incoming bird swarm with a casual flick of my dragon finger. I have 9 days to turn this canyon into an endangered zone. You guys are first on the menu. 6 days flew by in a blur of blood and shattered ice. As the final pure-blood Kodo Beast puppet collapsed into a pile of frozen slush, my limbs turned into jelly, and I collapsed flat on the floor, panting for air. Ding! System announcement. Pure-blood Kodo Beasts have been driven to absolute extinction on this floor. Extinction reward, 20 unlock points credited. Current stats, total unlock points, 416. Level, increased to Tier 2 level 16. This was officially the 11th species of Ice Canyon monster I had completely wiped off the map. Over the last 6 days, I had pushed my physical body past its breaking point more times than I could count. At my current high level, even if I hunted down the final 2 remaining species left in the ravines, the experience wouldn't be enough to grant me even a single level up. But I had to. Not only did this completely sabotage the Ice Emperor's healing mechanism, but completing the hunt would grant me a cumulative total of 90 unlock points. To guarantee an absolute victory against her 5-digit stats, I had 2 specific ultimate skills on my tree that absolutely had to be unlocked. Meanwhile, deep in the absolute heart of the Glacial Palace, the Ice Emperor was staring at a massive egg made of pure ice, looking thoroughly confused.
10 days had passed. Logically speaking, a low-tier level 75 monster like this Nekomata should have had her internal organs completely melted and replaced by glacial mana by now. Yet, looking through the translucent ice, aside from about 20% of her skin being slightly eroded, Cat South North's body was stubbornly resisting the transformation. The Ice Emperor could feel that even though this cat girl was locked in a deep coma, the absolute deepest layer of her consciousness was holding on to a wildly powerful, stubborn emotional attachment. This intense mental willpower was keeping her cellular activity alive, slowing the forbidden spell down to a crawl. But hey, no matter how tough your mental guard is, every castle crumbles eventually. The Ice Emperor's eyes didn't show impatience, they showed a creepy, doting satisfaction. To her, a puppet with a soul this resilient was the ultimate premium collectible. But right then, a voice shattered the holy silence of the Frost Nest. The Ice Emperor's entire body shuddered. She snapped her head up, staring in utter absolute disbelief at the dragon-type monster that had just casually strolled into her line of sight. You have already witnessed my divine power. How do you still possess the audacity to return? In just 9 days, the sheer radiating killing intent pouring off my scales had multiplied by easily 10 times. My cold, razor-sharp eyes looked straight up at her majestic perch as I casually muttered, "Didn't your mother ever teach you that kidnapping a child bride is highly illegal? That's my girl you've got there. Hand her over." This time around, the Ice Emperor's face completely lost all of its previous smugness. She was finally looking at me as a real, certified, existential threat. 9 days ago, she was mildly surprised to see a decent predator on floor 3, but in her eyes, I was still just a slightly shiny version of a common trash mob, not worth her time. But in a brief span of 9 days, she was witnessing a completely illogical, reality-breaking metamorphosis inside this tiny creature. I knew Cat South North was running out of time, so I skipped the monologue. I took one explosive step forward, turning my body into a reverse meteor as I shot straight at the Ice Emperor's face. Boom! I delivered a ruthless, full-power kick right into her beak. The sheer velocity of the impact generated a visible crescent-shaped shockwave that sliced through the stone flooring like a guillotine. Snapping out of her shock, the Ice Emperor was instantly consumed by pure rage. Her eyes flared, and she opened her beak to unleash an ultimate Sub-Zero frost breath. But the very millisecond the blizzard left her mouth, she gasped in horror. The baby dragon that had been glued to her face a microsecond ago had completely vanished into thin air. "Up here, you crazy bird!" My voice boomed from directly above her. The Ice Emperor whipped her head upward. Somehow, during her attack animation, I had jumped nearly a full kilometer into the sky. My jaws were open, tightly condensing a grand void dragon breath that was burning with such an absurd, localized temperature that the actual space around my mouth was visibly warping and distorting. The last time she took 4 of my breaths straight to the face, she had shrugged it off thanks to her infinite health regen exploit, looking at our desperate struggle like a couple of pathetic clowns putting on a circus show. But this time, the game had changed. Her primordial, 1,000-year-old danger instinct suddenly went into code red, screaming at her that if she just sat there and took this nuke without casting a full-power defensive barrier, even if she survived, she would be permanently removed from the active combat roster.
In less than a millisecond, the Ice Emperor funneled an unbelievable astronomical amount of mana into her defense. She began instantly stacking layers of crystal barriers directly above her head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 complete layers. In the blink of an eye, she had built an absolute impenetrable diamond fortress above herself. Grand Void Sky Piercer! I opened my jaws and unleashed a colossal, hundreds of meters long asteroid of pure cosmic flame, instantly cooking the Sub-Zero sky into a blinding, violent crimson. The Ice Emperor's first crystal barrier didn't even make physical contact with the blast. It was vaporized into steam from the sheer radiating heat from a distance. Then the second layer shattered, the third layer melted, and the fourth layer burst. The Ice Emperor's face instantly twisted into absolute historical horror. With a deafening crunch, the fifth and final defensive wall was punched clean through. The giant spear of celestial fire drove straight through her frost nest and speared right through the center of her majestic body. A blood-curdling, agonized shriek echoed throughout the entire glacial canyon. A single, solitary blow had deleted exactly half of her monstrous health bar in real time. If those 5 defensive walls hadn't absorbed 80% of the kinetic impact, that single attack would have sent her straight to the respawn screen. How could a low-tier runt like you possibly become this strong? Looking at the Ice Emperor violently thrashing and rolling around in pain on the icy floor, I didn't let my guard down for a single millisecond. Instead, I sank deeper into my combat stance, ready to pull out all the stops. See, that blast wasn't just a basic Grand Void Dragon Breath with a little bit of focus control. Oh no, I had spent the massive, eye-watering 300 unlock points to evolve that talent into its ultimate peak tier state, the high-ranked Dragon Legacy skill, Grand Void Sky Piercer. It's a supreme, apocalyptic technique that even the literal gods of this world aren't allowed to possess. The Ice Emperor stared up at me, her eyes bloodshot and trembling in sheer disbelief. Even if your skills are broken, your raw base attributes are vastly inferior to mine. Why are you able to? Do you have a basic appraisal skill, don't you? I interrupted coldly. Why don't you boot it up and take a good look at my stats yourself? Now, basic appraisal is a pretty run-of-the-mill skill in this world, basically a downgraded trial version of my developer cheat truth skill. It can't pull up deep hidden lore, but it allows any regular monster or human to read an opponent's exact level and base attribute numbers. Running a quick scan before a fight is standard operating procedure for literally everyone down here. Because the Ice Emperor had already memorized my pathetic tiny stats 9 days ago, she hadn't bothered to check me when I walked in. But as she finally cast her appraisal scan on my body today, her crystal pupils violently contracted. Specifically, when her eyes landed on one particular passive skill on my sheet, her mental sanity completely cracked from the shock. Passive skill, Bloodline Optimization, permanently recalibrates the user's physiological structure into its absolute, mathematically perfect optimal solution, grants a flat permanent plus 50% multiplier to all base attributes, including all current buffs and any future stats gained from leveling. When engaging an enemy whose level exceeds the user's, it activates a level compensation mechanism to completely nullify the natural stat suppression of high-level entities. Maximum compensation limit plus 40 levels. Tucked away at the absolute tippy top of my skill tree, right alongside Skypiercer, this was a legendary tier supreme skill that cost me a whopping 200 unlock points. The passive attribute multiplier alone was practically equivalent to undergoing an entirely new evolution tier, and that 40 level compensation completely broke the math of the game, rendering the Ice Emperor's massive level advantage entirely irrelevant. And finally, there was Hyper Regeneration, a trash passive I used to look down on, but which was now putting in absolute overtime. It only costs 5 unlock points. As long as I avoid taking damage or spending resources for a flat 10 seconds, my health and mana pools will slowly but surely tick right back up to full, a combined total investment of 505 unlock points. I literally liquidated my entire life savings just to buy myself a VIP ticket to stand in the ring and exchange blows with her. Do you also wish to shatter the holy peace that my beloved child cherishes so deeply? The Ice Emperor shrieked. Faced with the reality-breaking transformation of the little puppy dragon in front of her, she finally realized she had to play her absolute best cards. Her signature, undefeated blueprint for holding down floor 3 was foolproof. Use her infinite army of ice puppets to endlessly top off her own health bar, boost her stats to infinity, and then ruthlessly drown her opponent in a sea of bodies. Except 10 entire seconds ticked by, and not a single ice puppet crossed the threshold into the boss room. Looking for your backup? I tilted my head, flashing her a profoundly smug, mocking grin. Gee, that's weird. I wonder where they went. A sudden chilling dread washed over the Ice Emperor's face. You see, her forbidden spell, Flesh and Bone Artifact Creation, is fundamentally different from a standard magical summon. The ice puppets she cooks up possess genuine physical life essence. Because of that, commanding and maintaining a network connection with them drains a catastrophic amount of mental focus. Even if a boss-level entity can control a massive horde, they can only broadcast incredibly basic automated macros. The puppets have to rely on their own rudimentary AI to navigate and fight, which meant she had absolutely zero active feedback to tell her if her puppets were currently getting ambushed or assassinated out in the fields. To actually sense the status of every single individual node in her network, her perception attribute would need to exceed a ridiculous 3 million points. Not even the Floor King Leviathan could boast a number that absurd. There was mathematically zero way for her to know I was systematically cleansing the ravines. Right now, the Ice Emperor felt like she had been dropped into a freezing lake. She couldn't comprehend how this tiny dragon hatchling had perfectly deduced the single structural vulnerability of her forbidden spell, let alone how I had actually found the sheer manic endurance to slaughter all 30,000 of her ice puppets over the last week. Your ice puppets were incredibly tough, and honestly, you earned the right to rule this third floor, I said, my voice softening slightly as I stepped forward. Look, I've been down a road similar to yours. I've had family die right in front of my eyes. Babylon told me your entire history. What happened to your kid was an absolute tragedy. But do you want to know the difference between you and me? The reason I'm going to win today is because my eyes are fixed firmly on the horizon ahead. The flesh and blood of my lost family became the foundation that pushes me forward. But you let your grief turn into a chain that locks you in a cage. The moment the name Babylon slipped past my lips, the Ice Emperor's entire body gave a violent, spasmodic shudder. The haunting grief in her eyes instantly twisted into a feral, rabid insanity. That miserable, decaying old fossil, she screamed. She gave a thunderous flap of her wings, unleashing a localized apocalyptic hurricane. The sheer, condensed mana of Floor 3 began pouring into her crystal wings, causing them to radiate a blinding, prismatic neon rainbow. Seeing the display, my expression went dead serious. I knew without a doubt that her next move was going to be an all-or-nothing maximum power ultimate attack. Taking advantage of the brief monologue, my hyper regeneration had already successfully topped off my health and mana back to a flawless 100%. As her wing aura reached its absolute peak, the Ice Emperor executed a ferocious, sweeping downstroke. A tidal wave of pure, concentrated sub-zero mana erupted forward. The freezing pressure was so violently intense that the actual oxygen molecules in its path were instantly condensed into solid blocks of ice. Faced with the incoming apocalypse, I unleashed the single strongest combo of my entire reincarnated existence. Comet Strike plus Grand Void Skypiercer. It was like my jaws had opened up and literally birthed a living, burning star. An unimaginable, cataclysmic wall of cosmic heat erupted forward, instantly melting and vaporizing the perpetually frozen bedrock of the dungeon. On one side of the room, the fabric of space itself was getting flash frozen into solid crystal. On the other side, glaciers that had stood unbothered for 10,000 years were dissolving into boiling water. Frost and solar fire collided dead center in the cavern, triggering a blinding, earth-shattering explosion of pure white light. Once upon a time, at the very dawn of creation, when the dungeon was first constructed, this place was nothing but a chaotic, lawless void. The primitive monsters that had been dragged down and trapped here by the gods turned the 5 floors into a permanent, horrific meat grinder, slaughtering one another endlessly to carve out territory. But out of that multi-millennial bloodbath, a single magnificent phoenix was born. Using her absolute, overwhelming power, she single-handedly crushed the warring factions on her floor, pacifying the endless cycle of slaughter and carving out a beautiful, sacred sanctuary of pure peace. Once upon a time, Floor 3 was a breathtaking paradise filled with blooming flowers, singing birds, and a beautiful, ambient warmth that bathed the entire realm. It was so incredibly serene that even Babylon, one of the ultimate final bosses of the dungeon, moved his entire retirement estate down to Floor 3 just to enjoy the quiet, tranquil lifestyle. As the centuries rolled by, the Phoenix utilized her legendary power of Nirvana. Every few hundred years, she would actively absorb the cumulative malice, hatred, and negative emotions festering within her world, willingly perishing in a pillar of fire before resurrecting anew, cleansing her sanctuary and carrying the hatred away from her pure utopia. Then came the day she gave birth to a child. The little chick grew up to walk right alongside her mother, taking up her sacred mantle to jointly manage this hidden, peaceful wonderland nestled deep within the earth. But what the Phoenix mother and son failed to realize was a fundamental truth of existence. Malice and greed can never be truly deleted. The ultimate ruler of the dungeon, Leviathan, looked down from his throne and refused to tolerate a peaceful, cozy paradise inside his domain. In his eyes, a monster needs to act like a monster, trapped in a permanent, bloody wheel of slaughter, evolution, and brutal natural selection. And so, the king left his throne. Leviathan descended upon the 3rd floor, ruthlessly slaughtered the Phoenix's beloved child right before her eyes, and stripped away the sapience, wisdom, and intelligence of every single monster residing on Floor 3. Completely stripped away their sanity, turning them into nothing but mindless, bloodthirsty meat grinders. But the Phoenix mother still vividly remembered the last words her child whispered to her before breathing his last. "Mother, if only this peace could last forever, how wonderful would that be? If only we could break this dungeon's curse, how wonderful would that be?" Back then, she had screamed at Babylon. "Babylon, you are a master of this dungeon just like Leviathan. Why did you sit back and watch him obliterate everything I painstakingly built on Floor 3? Faced with her heartbreak, Babylon had only given her a single heavy line. "I did my best." "Babylon actually told me your whole story," I murmured, standing over the dying Ice Emperor. The pure rage in my eyes slowly melted away, exposing the deep buried empathy I had hidden away. In her final moments of fading consciousness, the Ice Emperor locked her gaze onto me. I just wanted things to be like they were before, where everyone could coexist in harmony and the slaughter would finally stop. "But what you ended up doing was far more cruel than the slaughter itself," I said softly. "You said you didn't want this world to bend to Leviathan's will, that you just wanted to protect Floor 3 and break our curse. But by turning everyone into mindless puppets, you became the exact kind of feral, tyrannical monster Leviathan wanted you to be." The Ice Emperor closed her eyes. She wasn't dead just yet, but she chose to stop speaking, burying her final thoughts inside her heart. I stared down at her, falling into a deep, heavy silence. Until the very second her life force officially vanished, I didn't say another word. "I'll break this curse for you. Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to say a corny line like that, because let's be real, it's totally unrealistic. Even if I somehow manage to assassinate Leviathan later and escape to the surface, the system will just spawn another ultimate monster to take his place. I'm sorry, I can't be a grand heroic savior like you want it to be, I finally confessed, giving her my absolute honest truth at the very end. Grand, overarching dreams usually just turn out to be empty bubbles anyway. Honestly, all I want is to stop the people closest to me from dying. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, but the very millisecond those words left my mouth, the bitter, resentful look on the dead Ice Emperor's face seemed to completely evaporate. In its place, a tiny, faint trace of relief settled over her expression. With a resonant crystal shatter, the Ice Emperor's colossal body completely dissolved into a massive pile of crushed ice. Level increased to Tier 2 Level 17. Main quest completed. 80 unlock points have been credited to your account. With the ruler of the floor officially liquidated, the massive glaciers around the room began to crack and collapse, and the local temperature started noticeably bouncing back up toward normal. Scanning the room, my eyes locked onto the corner where the ice egg containing Cat South North was sitting. Her aura was incredibly faint, but the system verified she was still breathing. I let out a massive, monumental sigh of relief. Thank God. But right as I was waddling over to crack open her icy capsule, a small object suddenly rolled out from the pile of the Ice Emperor's frozen remains. Curious, I trotted over, bent down, and picked it up. The second it touched my claw, it felt completely smooth and warm, like premium jade. It was a glowing sky blue snowball about the size of a regular chicken egg. Whoa, is that a divine core? A booming voice echoed. Little guy, you just hit the absolute jackpot. That's a legendary treasure that only has a measly 1 in 1,000 chance of dropping when a level 150 plus monster bites the dust.